It's my birthday today. There are only two things I can guarantee on my birthday. The first is that the sun will always shine, no matter what the rest of February throws at me. The 17th will always have a clear blue sky. The second is something will try to kill me. This has happened since the day I was born. By the time I'd taken my first breath, the midwife had tried to end me. She was sweet as pie, Lewis, Mama told me later in life. But tight, here's a button. As soon as you were delivered, she changed. One moment she was smiling as if you were her own child. The next there she was, such evil in her eyes. My dad managed to pry me from her arms as soon as it became clear she was hurting me. She was ferocious. It took 5 hospital employees to hold her down. When I think back to my earliest childhood birthdays, I recall only flashes of distress. My mom's cries as she locked me in the pantry, hearing the house being overturned. My dad screaming to the sounds of struggle. It wasn't until the eve of my 7th birthday that they explained why I couldn't go to school the next day, that I started to notice the evidence of my parents' protection. Scars over my dad's body. For as long as I could remember, Mom was missing a finger on her right hand. From experience, we learned that I'm only at risk between sunrise and sunset. As long as the sun is shining, I'm in danger. Who or what will be out for me can never be predicted. My 15th birthday is one I'll never forget. My dad decided we'd go away for a few days to see if getting out of town made a difference. We drove for hours to the Lake District, staying in remote cabins surrounded by hills. There was a small lake just a stone's throw away. As always, the sun was bright on the morning of my birthday. We never made plans for obvious reasons, instead settling for a day in the cabin. Mom packed the playing cards and we spent hours playing rummy and pontoon for pennies. Dad occasionally looked around the cabin with a handgun, checking for signs of anything unusual. Mom had a large hunting knife in a sheath, sitting on the edge of the table. By that point in my life, it was no longer alien to see such weapons in my parents' possession. Being at an age where I could actively defend myself too, I had a baseball bat by my side. Just to be safe, Dad had switched off all electrical mains at the cabin before sunrise. There was no need for lighting, seeing as we had an abundance of daylight pouring in. I peeked through the window and asked if we could go for a walk around the lake. The shimmering surface looked beautiful. We have more control in the cabin, Lewis, Dad said. It's always tomorrow, to explore the landscape. As it got closer to sunset, you could cut the tension with a knife. We stopped playing cards and sat at the table in silence, waiting for the inevitable. My stomach was in knots. I met Mom's eyes and she was gripping my trembling hand. We've got this, she smiled. I could tell it was forced. Within the next few minutes, there came some distant whistling from outside. Dad's eyes were as wide as he gripped his gun. It made my heart jolt. Wait, said Mom quietly, grabbing his arm. Don't be rash. It could be an innocent passerby. There's no harm in being cautious, he said, pointing the gun at the door. We were all on edge as the whistling got closer. For long it sounded like it was right outside the cabin. Dad stood up. Get away from here, he bellowed, making me flinch. Mom stood too, pulling me up with her. She got in front of me and unsheathed the knife. The whistling started to move around the cabin, as if the person responsible was circling it. I said, go away, Dad screamed. The person continued to whistle the pleasant tune, not intimidating in the slightest. When it sounded like it was coming directly behind me, I looked over my shoulder. An older man wearing a wide-brimmed hat passed the kitchen window, looking down as he whistled. It was only then I realized he was whistling the classic Happy Birthday tune. He looked up and gave me a wink as he met my eyes, sending a shiver down my spine. As the whistling reached the front of the cabin again, it stopped. My parents' weapons trembled as they held them at arm's length. Lewis, came an excitable voice from the front window. It made me freeze. The man was dressed in a typical walking attire. He held up a large metal can with a huge grin on his face, and poured some liquid. Please tell me that's not, said Mom. The man dropped the can and dug around in his pocket, pulling out something that glinted in the sun. He clicked his finger, and I could just make out a small flame. He smiled as he stared at me. No, screamed Dad. Happy birthday, Lewis, said the man. Then he was engulfed in the flame. As my parents panicked, the cabin became gradually hotter and filled with smoke. I couldn't take my eyes off the man staring at me through the window. Despite his skin peeling away from the skull, continued to whistle happy birthday until he physically couldn't. I was suddenly shocked as my dad wrapped a cold, wet towel around me. "Louis," he screamed in my face, "I'm going to kick down the door. You run straight to the lake. Do you understand?" I stuttered and started to choke from the smoke, inhalation. "But the fire," I said, scared. "Don't worry about the fire," he demanded, pulling the towel over my head. "You run to that lake and get straight in the water, okay?" I started to cry and felt Mom put her hands on my shoulders from behind. "I'll be right behind you," Dad said, choking. He made his way to the door. The heat was becoming intense. "Are you ready?" I remember seeing a wall of flame. Then I was in the lake soothing my burns. Mom was next to me screaming Dad's name. He wasn't with us. It took me a long time to accept that wasn't my fault. Mom helped me a lot with that. "Your dad loved you more than life itself," she said, "just like I do." As soon as I turned 18, I no longer accepted my mom's help with the unusual condition. She'd done enough for me. She screamed about it, but I made it easier for her by disappearing every birthday. I tend to visit some remote place where I know there won't be many people. It doesn't ever stop someone or something from finding me, but I feel better knowing that I'm not endangering others. Mom called me last night, as she always does on the eve of my birthday. "You call me at sundown," she said. "Promise me, Louis." I promised her and made my way back to the lake, where the cabin no longer stood. Instead, I set up a tent by the water's edge. As the sun began to set today, my 33rd birthday, my anxiety level settled too. It was the longest I'd ever been without something trying to kill me. I started to ask myself hypothetical questions. Was it a 30-year curse? Had I narrowly avoided death without knowing it? I was confused but excited. I'd never seen the sun begin to set before my inevitable murder attempt. I sat on a deck chair and admired the colors over the lake's surface. I had a glass of wine and a pot of fruit salad. The sky was that beautiful shade of purple you only see on the brightest days. I opened my glass, acknowledging the scar on my hand from a previous birthday. "To living another year," I smiled, taking a sip of wine. Then I threw a grape into the air and caught it in my mouth, like I used to do when I was a kid. That was a mistake. I began to choke. I dropped my glass, which shattered on the lakeside stones. Panicking, I made a fist and forced into my chest several times. It made no difference. I couldn't breathe. I frantically looked up and down the shores for signs of life, for anyone who could help me. I was alone out there, that's what I wanted. I fell to my knees and held my hands to my chest, becoming lightheaded. I thought about how close I was to making it through another birthday. The sun was almost completely set. And then came a whack. Before I knew it, I was laying on my side, coughing my guts up, the grape having me hurled from my windpipe. My back and chest stung to high heaven. I took in exaggerated breaths as the sun disappeared over the lake. When I was calm enough, I set up my phone to take a picture of my back. There was a blood-red handprint. I'm 99% sure that some random passerby didn't sneak up, slap me, then run away. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I happened to be in the vicinity of where my dad spent his final moments. I won't lie, I'm freaking out, but I'm alive. For those that don't know already, look up how to perform the Heimlich maneuver on yourself. It could save your life one day, if you don't have a dead loved one to help you.